Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. This is episode 61, and I am your host, Ellis, otherwise known as Train Man. For those of you who stuck around, or have stuck around for that long, we are here in the swamp because of a comment that my attention was drawn to it before I even got the chance to read the comments for this episode, so I suppose I'm just going to start here, and Lord knows I'm going to end here because this is an undertaking. So I'll read it right off. Well, I'm not going to read that part. Spend the next episode in the swamp and just get it done, because let's face it, nobody likes it, but it needs to just get done, says Casey Jones 3. That's Chris. So, yeah, you're right. It does need to get done. It's the kind of thing that I've been chipping away at, but unlike the town, unlike Olive, there's nothing really redeeming about it. It looks kind of like crap in a very literal way, and that's when it's done. When it's done, it looks like crap. Before it's done, it doesn't look like much. But, this swampy area, yeah, it's something that needs to get completed, and I'm going to work on it. Today I'm going to work on it this episode, and, anyway. Before we get too far away from it, or before we get too far from the beginning of the episode, I'd like to say that I remembered almost all of what I was trying to remember from last episode and put in a document. I obviously wasn't going to be putting things into... That is not what I grabbed. Into the document while I worked on the episode. Maybe that would just be in bad form. But I did go back after I'd finished, and I started doing some writing. I haven't had time since. Worked a very long and difficult and fairly stressful week, which normally I don't talk about my work in a bad light, and you guys don't need my sob stories anyway. But the fact of the matter is, with that, I've been far too busy to work on the Housatonic. Which is a shame, because I was really getting somewhere with it. Not that I'd picked up a whole lot of momentum, but I was really enjoying writing it. And there are a few things that have occurred to me that have occurred to me since that I want to write down, and it's a time commitment, time that I don't really have. There are other things that I'd like to be doing, or have to be doing, and this is one that falls into both categories. So I'm not working on the Housatonic right now. I mean, if I wasn't doing this, I would probably be doing work stuff. It is, 5:30 on a Friday. I know I normally record this on Thursday, but like I said, my week has been so hectic that I honestly haven't had time to even record this when I normally would. So that's as bad as it is. And last week, I suppose, was a little bit of the same, but last week I was busy for other reasons, not because of work necessarily. So, yeah, I've been a little bit bogged down with things. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, I believe that has come to an end, at least for the time being. In fact, we wrapped up so many projects today that I'm concerned that we might be light on projects going to next week. There are some things that I know I can do or that I have to do, but those are particularly over the weekend rather than on Monday. It's the nature of engineering, really. Especially in consultant-based engineering or even design build, like we do both of those. It's the kind of thing where we can spend, or we can have a lot of time where we are very busy. And we have a lot of jobs to do, and we're being asked to do a lot of things by a lot of different firms or a lot of different people. And then we come off of that, and we were so busy that it's sort of, we had to, either turn down or put things on the back burner. And, the people that we'd work with, went to other people. We didn't bid on things, perhaps, that we could have in order to get that work. And now that work is with some other people. And now we, and then we have less to do. We have ultimately little to do, and it goes in this sort of fluctuation where, you think, oh, we've got so much work to do, we can't bid on anything else, we can't try to get more work, and then the work you have ends, and it's like, well, now we need more work. And it's difficult to balance that. I can understand. I'm not a boss, but I can understand why it's difficult to balance that, because you need to anticipate your future demand, and that's difficult. So, yeah, I have been working on primarily the airport master plan. So, Providence Airport, T.F. Green Airport, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's fairly small, but it serves a pretty big purpose, which is it acts as an overflow to Boston Logan Airport, which is the nearest it's the nearest large airport. We've got in New England, if you're looking at airports, you got LaGuardia and JFK, which those aren't in New England, they're in New York, but they basically feed New England, because from those places you can get to upstate New York and then into Vermont or into Western Mass, or you can get into Connecticut and into Rhode Island and then into Eastern Mass that way, and then into Maine that way, in New Hampshire. Sort of in the middle there, not that anybody really goes to New Hampshire. And yeah, it's the kind of thing where other than that, the only other large airport that we have is LaGuardia. Or not LaGuardia, friggin' hell. It's Logan. They both start with L's. But the other airport that we have that's of decent size is Logan. And that's the large international airport that feeds pretty much, basically a good portion of northern New England, central New England, and even some of southern New England, because it feeds Rhode Island more than JFK or LaGuardia does. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely some competition there, depending on what you're going to fly into. If you're going to New Haven, for example. But there are smaller regional airports, and there are other places that have sort of overlooked, like the Portland Jetport, which pretty much serves Maine. But as far as major airports go, especially in southern New England, you're looking at Logan and then the New York airports, and then T.F. Green. And T.F. Green is an international airport. It serves, I think, the Azores, and it also serves Ireland, which is a big destination for people, not just for tourists, but for people with family there. There's a very large Irish population in Boston, and there's a lot of people that come over to visit their relatives, or that go over there to visit their relatives. It's the kind of thing where it's a very targeted demographic, and the fact that they are making use of that is smart, and I can see why they are doing those flights. But yeah, we act as an overflow for Logan Airport, which is a big deal. We handle a lot of flights. Really, for a 2-runway airport, we handle a lot of flights, and that number is expected to increase by a factor of 2 in the not-so-distant future. So, and by the not-so-distant future, I mean the next 20 years or so, we should see an increase of a factor of 2 of the flights into and out of T.F. Green Airport, T.F. Green International Airport, or whatever you want to call it. Some people want to change the name to, like Rhode Island International Airport, or Providence International Airport. The thing is, I mean, I don't necessarily have a beef against changing it to Rhode Island International Airport. I just think it sounds less cool. I do have an issue with calling it the Providence International Airport, because, newsflash for those people here that aren't from Rhode Island, the airport that serves all of Rhode Island is not in the capital of Rhode Island. It's in Warwick. And, to be more specific, it's in Hillsgrove, which is a subsection of Warwick. Originally, when the airport was built in the 1930s, it was called Hillsgrove Airport. And that, since then the airport has grown significantly. They built a new terminal in the 60s. They revitalized it in the 90s. But it's still, and they named it T.F. Green Airport I think in the 50s. It's not referring to Green, G-R-E-N-E. It's just G-R-E-N, and it was a state senator of ours, Theodore Francis Green, and he was kind of a big deal, so they named it after him. I'm not actually sure what important things he did, like why he got the airport named after him, but he got it named after him. I don't have any personal attachment to the name. I just don't think it should be called Providence Airport, because that is misleading. Even though you are only one stop on the commuter rail away from Providence, it's the kind of thing where it's not Providence Airport. You're not landing in Providence. Yes, you can look out of the window of the plane and see Providence because it's really not that far away. But when you step out of the terminal, you are not in downtown Providence, and you aren't in like an outlying, oh, this takes you to downtown Providence. It's its own town. The city of Warwick is its own city. It exists independently of Providence. But Warwick itself is trying to give the area around the airport a little bit of a facelift. They call it City Center Warwick, and they are they're trying to encourage businesses and basically de-warehousify that area, which that area is very much sort of not really industrial, but still industrial, like not like industry, like working industry, but like warehouse district sort of thing. It's not the best area. It's not the best looking area. It's mostly offices and warehouses. And a couple of hotels, because obviously the airport draws in some people that use the hotels there. It's rental cars. That's where you stay. That's where you stay. You get off the plane, you don't go very far. You just sort of get off the plane, grab your rental car, and go a couple of, buildings down, really. They're very close. You can walk to them, really, if you want to. But, and that's it. Then you're there. You have a hotel. You have a place to stay. And if you're vacationing in Rhode Island, you're not going to stay in that area. You're going to go somewhere else. So, the rental cars, everything, and the things there, the cars there, or the transit and stuff, it's helpful. But the rental cars are really, you're not going to go to Rhode Island really and survive without a rental car for very long. Even though the state is that small, we don't necessarily pride ourselves on a totally visitor-friendly public transit system. Not that our system isn't, but it's not the kind of thing where we advertise, take the bus everywhere, do this, do that. I mean, there's still the bus stigma. Even if you did that, I doubt people would ride. Even a shuttle bus is sometimes unattractive to people, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. It's the kind of thing where people hear the word bus and they see a little, they see a diesel-propelled thing that's long and has 4 wheels, and they go, oh, I'm not riding that. And admittedly, I'm guilty of it too. It's not like I'm a perfect saint when it comes to the bus stigma. In fact, I don't really like buses in general, but having a bus is better than having no public transportation, and when you're in a bind, the bus will do. I used the bus pretty often my freshman year at RPI because it was easy, it was there, and for students it was free. So, never knock on your public transit system unless you think that it should be better, as opposed to being like, yeah, what a waste of money, we don't need this. People still use public transit. People do use public transit, and if you don't think you need public transit, just try living without a car. It's the kind of thing where even a bus system can handle, 1,000 people an hour, and that's with your average headways and stuff like that, or well, that's capacity, I should say. It's not average. That's how many people you'd expect to be able to move an hour with a bus service, in traffic and whatever. And in a dedicated right-of-way, it can move like 3 times that. It can move like 3,600 people And even a streetcar on the street can move like 4,500 people with, with normal headways and stuff like that. Streetcars are generally better at accelerating and decelerating. People normally give the right of way to streetcars more often than they do buses, and you can pack more people in a streetcar because generally they're not moving their own motive power. They are, they're getting electricity off of a line, and that means that you have that much more space. So they can be smaller, they're more efficient, they can get better acceleration, they can get better capacity with the same length. They can get a better top speed as well, and yeah. I mean, there are lots of advantages to streetcars. The obvious disadvantage is that there's a huge price difference in terms of maintenance costs of a bus versus a streetcar. Streetcars cost an order of magnitude more to keep running, and that's why people really go for buses, and that's why people went for buses back in the day. Obviously, there's the whole GM conspiracy where they buy up systems and then scrap them to push their buses, but the fact of the matter is the world was trending in that direction anyway just because it was cheaper. It's sort of very similar to the steam to diesel transition, where it's, of course, in this case, diesel manufacturers weren't able to go in and take the steam engines and scrap them, but it's synonymous to the streetcar to bus transition, because you suddenly have this thing on the market that takes a whole lot less to keep running. And if you're a transit agency, or even you're a private company especially, what are you going to pick? If you have the infrastructure there for a dedicated streetcar system, or not even a streetcar system, like a dedicated right-of-way trolley system, like the Ashmont-Mattapan high-speed line, or trolley tunnels, or, that sort of thing, then yeah, it's going to persevere because you already have spent that much money on it. And buses don't do so well in that kind of situation because they've got exhaust fumes and they have to be manually driven. They don't just stick to rails and go around. But at a point in time where transit companies were really trying to grab every last dollar they could out of their passengers, not because they were money grubbing, but because they were being outcompeted by the automobile just in general, having something on the market where you can ditch your incredibly expensive to maintain streetcar system and just have some rubber-tired buses that drive around on existing infrastructure that you don't have to pay to maintain, that's fantastic. You can do that all day long. It'll save you so much money. And so, yeah, I'm sure the streetcar conspiracy, however true it may be, pushed things in that direction, but there's no way things weren't going in that direction anyway. There's no way that, and there's no way that even the most well-meaning of railroads could have kept steam and been competitive past, 1960. So it's a matter of the times changing, it's a matter of the technology is different, it's a matter of, it's an era change, and you see this, this paradigm shift, and you see this move back to it now again because of the bus stigma, not really because of any other reason other than, I suppose, efficiency in an era where we're, trying to be very careful with our energy, very careful with the gasoline that we burn and diesel that we burn and emissions that we put out. Yes, streetcars are going to be a fantastic solution to those problems because they can be run off of electricity. They run on dedicated right-of-way. You can put them in dedicated right-of-way and make it seem like it belongs. It's really hard to sell a bus rapid transit system because it's sort of, to the consumer, it's sort of like putting makeup on a pig, putting lipstick on a pig, where people they're not really invested in a bus system to begin with. Making a bus rapid transit system with a dedicated corridor is really just, you're spending a lot of money on something that, yeah, service might get better, but you're really not going to draw anybody else in. It might be cool to have, but it's not going to have the ridership of a streetcar in that situation. And, that's something that, I'm saying I don't have numbers to back it up, with me, But it's the kind of thing where I'm sure if I looked into it, I could find numbers that back that conclusion up, because the bus stigma is very, very real. And, the other thing is, the other reason that the bus stigma is there is sort of like the reason that most stigmas exist, because it's viewed as something for the poor. Even public transportation in general, but if you get into a place where it's too crowded, everybody takes the public transportation, because you don't have another option. If you talk to the average businessman from New York, they probably take the subway. Sorry, holy crap, I didn't expect that to impede my talking. I wanted it to help. Instead of having a normal glass of water to satiate my sometimes unquenchable thirst during these shows, I have a Johnny Rockets milkshake. That didn't help. That made it a lot more difficult to talk. So that was a mistake. But, oh well, it's delicious. It's my, I can't really number it in terms of true loves, but it's up there. Yeah. It's helped by the fact that Madison got it for me, so it's like two of my truest loves coming together. Like, you guys understand. Milkshakes are good. Anyway. Yeah, if you talk to the average businessman in New York, they'll probably either take they probably take Metro North in, or they take the subway, or whatever. It's a very middle class thing, and even upper middle class, depending on where you're living. But the fact that buses can reach areas without that much infrastructure, capital up front, you don't have to build a dedicated right-of-way. If an area's got roads, you can put a bus in it. Means that for an area that's getting basically the lowest bar of service, they're just going to have a bus. And then people think about that and they go, oh, well, this area just has a bus. It doesn't have these other frilly things. That's the poor area. They only have buses, therefore buses are for poor people. And that's not true. Buses are for everybody. In fact, that's the point of mass transit. Yes, they may be catering to people that can't get themselves anywhere otherwise, but transit in general, the goal of transit is not to help the least among us, it's to help everybody, and it's to make the situation on the road, on the whole, better. And I'm sure you guys are all, I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm sure, because you guys are, I would assume, mostly rail buffs and such. Maybe even a couple of transit buffs in general, or bus people among you, but it's definitely the kind of thing where out in public a bus system is looked down upon, especially because people that don't use it, because they have a stigma against it, people that don't use it then deem it a waste of money because they don't use it. They don't use it because they perceive it as being only for poor people, and because they don't use it, they deem it to be wasteful, because why can't everyone get to work the way that they do? That doesn't mean that transport agencies aren't wasteful. In fact, there are plenty of instances of transportation agencies being very wasteful. And in New York City, I point to this because it's just a giant one. I don't necessarily think the Metropolitan Transit Authority is doing a particularly bad job, but it's just very easy to point to this. The 2nd Avenue subway costing more per mile than anything else in the world, by a serious magnitude. Now, the thing is, the 2nd Avenue subway serves the Upper East Side. That's not necessarily a low-income neighborhood. It's not really, by many stretches, a low-income neighborhood. It's costing an unbelievable amount to put that subway in. Whereas, looking at other parts of the world and the amount that they spend on transportation costs, or to build a transportation system, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare. It's yes, infrastructure prices are crazy, yes, it costs an immense amount to do basically any infrastructure project, no matter the scale, because not only do you have, you have probably labor laws, depends on where you are, labor laws that require you to use certain companies or certain materials, whether that just be like, oh, you have to get stuff from within the U.S. or, within your country, or you have to use these organizations, you have to use the union workers, or whatever it may be. It's the kind of thing where, you know what, I'm going to undo that because I don't actually want that like that. Are you going to update? Did I? There we go. You have to buy your rolling stock from within the U.S. or something like that. Those kinds of things really make it difficult to remain on budget, or even have a moderate budget. And the fact that usually these are government agencies putting out the contract, and oftentimes the law says that you have to go with the lowest bidder. Really means that you end up getting somebody who says, yes, we'll do it for this much, and then, they either don't do it right because they're trying to skimp on money as best possible, or they severely underestimated how much it would actually cost, or a combination of both. It's usually a combination of both. A little from column A, a little from column B. It's a very, very imperfect system, but I don't know what would necessarily be better. I'm not the guy to come up with that. Let's do that. Oh, my everything. So, fact of the matter is, no matter what we do, we're going to run into problems like this. We're going to run into similar issues where it's like, okay, how do we make sure that we aren't getting swindled on a bid? How do we make sure we're getting the best bang for the taxpayer's buck? Because, we're the ones paying for it on the whole. We're the ones, ultimately, the taxpayers, the voters, are the ones influencing how things are really going to be run. But, no matter what you do, you're going to run into plenty of issues where it's like, well, really, realistically, how do we do this to get it to work right? How do we get it to work the way that will be most beneficial for the most people, So, anyway, let's do this all around here. There we go. Shoota, Pokemon. I'm gonna go up to there with the mud. I don't know where else I'm going to go with the mud. Let's start to work this in a little bit here, although we have to transition it into a tree line, probably right around here. And we're gonna have to, do something with that to make it look decent. Although, to be fair, sometimes tree lines just are lines. That's really it. Okay, so we got that part done. Let's look at it. So we've got that. We've got this, and then really we have until over here. This is the end of the swamp, right about here. And so, we have maybe a third of it done in total. But as for today, I'm just going to, try to put as much time and effort into it as possible. Just all the grass and stuff like that. It's very, very straightforward, the building of this swamp. It's not anything extravagant. It's not anything that I'm worried about, oh, I'm going to mess it up. We have a formula. We have it down. There's not much that I intend to change about the way the swamp looks from here to the final product, other than just making it done. And yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I've got other things on the brain. I'm just trying to maintain a common or a continuous chain of thought. You know, when you start, like, I'm in the middle of this transit discussion, and I have other things popping into my head that I'm like, oh, I need to work on that later. I need to think about that later. I need to talk to this person about this thing. And it's just like, yeah, but that's not relevant to under construction. It's not what I'm trying to do now. It's not something that I'm going to talk about on the air. It's not something that's interesting for the viewers. I'd be like, oh, you know, in my personal life, this is what's happening. But no. If anyone wants a Volvo 850 for $500, you can let me know. You have to come get it, though. Also, AC doesn't work. Anyway, let me continue with this. Yeah, these fingers are going to be... They're just going to be the normal muddy color. It's not like I have these fingers of the drier area. This area is just pretty bleak on the whole. It's kind of kind of on purpose. But yeah, I'm not adding really any greenery because that's just what the color of the swamp is. It's swampy. It's an estuary, really. I mean, maybe it probably should be greener in general, but it is the way it is, and it's probably not changing from now to whenever. You know, I could have done something greener, but honestly, marshes are really just muddy a lot of the time. They're just mud. You know, everything that's interesting that's going on with the crustaceans or whatever, it's all under the surface, it's under the mud, it's under the water. It's not, you don't have these things that are growing all over the place. Not necessarily big things. Okay, so I'm going to try and get more of this. Now, this area, I think I'm going to not... If we're going to have an area with trees, it's going to be right here. I think this could be interesting, just having one little treed area just in the middle of the swamp. Not much else going on. Is this the same? Huh. I was trying to use the darker color for the bottom, and I think I did, but I might not have, because I wasn't paying that much attention. Yeah, the thing I've learned is I don't want to be moving my camera and trying to paint at the same time on the 5-meter grid, because it already acts up enough when I'm doing it without moving, and I don't need it acting up more. Right, this way, like so. But yeah, the reason I'm discussing all transit things is because that's just what's on the brain. Because, and I feel like that's something that's on the brain that you guys can actually sort of, you know, think about with me, because, again, you guys are the right demographic for that. You're the right group of people. And, you know, transit systems can be horribly mismanaged. There's definitely the opportunity for that to happen within a transit system. But, on the whole, having some transit is better than having no transit. You know, it's the sort of thing where it's like, yeah, if there's a problem, just fix the house. Don't burn down the house and try to build a new one, because the moment those timbers fall, you may never get them back up again. You might never get fresh wood, so to speak. So you know, enjoy what you've got. If you haven't tried the transit in your area, whatever it may be, go try it. You know, folks in Florida, go ride Brightline. Don't step in the way, but ride it. You know, Chicagoans, well, Chicago's big enough that it doesn't matter. You've probably ridden the L and Metro and stuff like that. You know, folks in DC, take the subway. All these areas, all these little cities that don't have too much going on. If you're in Tucson, take the light rail somewhere, and most of all, use the nation's public transit system. Take Amtrak, Ride the train. Uh-oh, please don't crash on me. I didn't do anything to anger you. Okay. I'm looking forward to making one last jaunt on the Dome car this coming, next month, I suppose. It's going to be on the Adirondack till I think November 3rd. And I really want to ride the Dome one more time because I had an absolute blast that first time around. Now, what was last? So last I made the podcast, or I made the episode, I can't remember exactly when. And then I might have talked about my future acquisition, which is the Iron Horseman wagon, or the Battle Cruiser as I've nicknamed it. It's a Volvo 240 Special Edition 1991 white 240 wagon. I said 240 twice, didn't I? Volvo 240 1991 Special Edition wagon in white. And it's got a little bit that's messed up with it. It's got a little bit of rust. I intend to get it touched up. It's got a couple of things that are amiss about it, but really, I'm buying a 30-year-old car almost. It's got some, there are gonna be some things wrong with it. So I'm not really too choked up over the issues with it, and I'm very happy over the fact that I talked the guy down. He was asking $3,400 for it. I talked him down to about $2,500, and we made a deal. So the Iron Horseman wagon may be coming to a town near you in the not-so-distant future, because I intend to take that thing on some adventures, my friends. That means the entirety of Route 1, the entirety of Route 6, the entirety of Route 20. And these are U.S. routes I'm talking here. Not interstates. So the stopping at the random towns, the saying hello, drive to Tennessee, drive to Ohio, drive to California, all over the place, drive to Colorado, drive to Arkansas, places I've never been before, places I didn't ever figure I'd get to. And, I knew I would eventually, but maybe not right away. And now I have this thing, and I just want to take it on adventures. I want to go and drive this thing. I want to have my, that's going to be my basic thing. Before I was figuring, okay, I'll take my week off a year and go to, go and do whatever the Iron Horseman trip is, to whatever thing, meet up with people. But if we don't make one that year, this year Madison and I did the Amtrak, and that was a blast. But having the Battle Cruiser, or as the current owner calls it, the White Whale, which I think is a great name for it, having that really makes me want to go on these road trips. I mean, it's got a roof rack. How can you not, how can you have a station wagon with a roof rack and not just immediately jump to the Great American Road Trip? Like, it has to happen. It has to happen. The inner, crap, what's his name? What's his name? Oh, I forget. Clark, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Self. My inner Clark Griswold is already yelling at me like, road trip time, go somewhere, have some mishaps, have the car break down, get it fixed, get a motel, stay a night, check out the world's largest toilet or something like that, go back to Cleveland, see the Factory of Sadness, and the Mather and the Rock Hall and all the cool things that, I named all the cool things that are going on in Cleveland already, but all the other things that are going on in Cleveland, go back to Chicago, spend more than a couple of hours there, go really hang out with Mason, go to the IRM and stuff like that, go rail fan, some interurbans, that sort of thing. go see the Rocky Mountains for all their glory. You know, I've gone near them, I've gone through them on the California Zephyr, but nothing really, I mean, nothing can compare to that either. But nothing's really like, oh, I just drove over the pass, or, you know, I got to stop and I got to look at this incredible scenic vista, the likes of which you can't get anywhere else, at least in the United States, possibly anywhere else on Earth. And I just, you know, I want to adventure. I want to explore. You get that kind of car, you want to do that. Or you just want to drift, I guess. If you're getting a Volvo 240 wagon, you're probably one of two people. The person that wants to take it on like getting one, like just buying one. You're either the person that wants to take it on trips, or you're the person that wants a sweet drift car. Because that thing is rear-wheel drive, and all the weight is up front. It's going to be so much fun in the snow, and I mean that legitimately. It is going to be so much fun in the snow. I missed having a rear-wheel drive car that could just, like, you spin the wheel and you go sideways. I missed that. I had that with my 940, and that thing is away. It'll be coming back someday, possibly someday soon. But, you know, it's the kind of thing where it's like, oh yeah, the car kind of sticks to the ground, doesn't it? It's very, the 850, surprisingly good in the snow. It really holds up in the snow. Way better than I would have anticipated it does. It can get itself out of some pretty hefty amounts of snow with some real, you know, with some finessing, but it can do it. And that's the important part. And, you know, the 240, I know, it's so big, it's so heavy, and it's, you know, similarly kind of underpowered. It's just going to be like, you know, like Disney on ice. I'm going to point it in a direction, and it's going to sort of go in that direction. It might take out a couple of buildings, but on the other side, you know, I'll get to my destination. It's going to be a blast to drive that in the snow. And I'm probably going to take it to, like, you know, like an empty parking lot that's covered in snow and just faff about, you know, just slide around and whatever. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to have this car. Again, I know, well, I mean, when I get it, there isn't too much that I have to do with it right off the bat. There are things, like, the main thing I'm concerned about is touching it up, because it's got some rust, because it's lived in New England its entire life, and we do a lot of salt on these roads, so cars tend to rust. All things considered, it's not in bad shape. The interior is fantastic. But there are two things that I really care about right off the bat, excuse me. And those are the fact that the interior, crocodile, alligator, oh crap, I just put the wrong thing on the edge. The interior, the third row seats, it's a 7-passenger wagon. The third row seats do not have the full seat belt assembly. It has the buckles, and it has like one of the belts. And those are not attached. None of those things are attached to the car. They're in a box. And so I was like, okay, that's good to have. I would like to be able to use those seats. So I'm going to need to go, and I'm going to need to either get parts for the wagon, or I'm going to need to get like aftermarket parts and just install them myself. I intend to do a lot of work on this wagon myself, if at all possible. I'm not going to do the paint. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to be able to know what to do with, you know, there's rust, there's some rust spots. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to know what to do to sort of prevent that from getting worse. I'll talk to my Volvo guy about that. And, yeah. And that's, you know, that and the seat belts are really it. Those are two things I'm worried about. The other thing is, I could use to fix one of the gauges. That would be the coolant temperature gauge, which doesn't work. The car does not have a history of overheating, but I wouldn't really know now, would I? So, it seemed to be fine in the drive that we took it on, but the, you know, the fact of the matter is I don't want to be out somewhere and the car's overheating and I don't know. You know, I would like to be able to know that right off the bat, if that's, you know, if that is beginning to happen. So that is the one thing I would like to fix. I'm not sure what's wrong with it exactly. I don't know how to diagnose it, but I'm sure there are people that do. And I can, that is probably the first thing that I would like to undertake myself. Because the thing about this car, it's a 91, it is simple enough that you can do most things yourself. Most things that don't involve, the engine block or the transmission that you'd have to take out with some sort of jack, you can do yourself. And I'm looking forward to doing that stuff myself because I'm really not a handy guy and I would like to be handier. I have I'm very averse to literally getting my hands dirty. And I'm not really sure why that is, especially as a guy that's such a fan of steam locomotives that just make a goddamn mess. There's no other way to put it. They do. And so, it's the kind of thing where absolutely I want to become more handy, and this car is hopefully going to be my gateway to doing that. It's hopefully going to be the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I can fix things on this car. Like, that's good. I'd sort of teach myself that, it's not so bad to do that. The 850 I feel is beyond me. Even the 940 a little bit. It's only a 94. But there are a lot more things that need to be fixed on it. More major components that need to be fixed on it. And other, like electrical stuff that I'm not really a fan of touching. These things that are beyond me. I am a civvy. I'm a transportation engineer. I could do structural stuff if you put it in front of me. I could probably figure out some mechanical stuff. Electrical stuff, go ask somebody else. I'm not your guy. I can make a basic circuit. That's it. Give me one of those little circuit sets. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to have. And I need to learn how to be an electrical engineer just from that. And I feel like, I'm certain that doing this, see, the other thing is, and this is part of the reason, I don't have my own model railroad. I never felt like doing that stuff myself. I liked being part of a club, pay a little bit of money and you get access to this layout that people work on and that a bunch of people are on and whatever. I don't care that it's not my layout. All I care is that it's a layout and it's a very nice layout. So that's really my thing, because I'm not into the building. I'm not into the building. I don't think I have the talent for that. I'm not saying I can't, really. I'm sure I could if you pointed me in the right direction, but I have no interest in getting my fingers dirty or burning myself or, in general, doing those kinds of things. And I'm making it sound like it's dangerous or really dirty, and it's not. It's just that that's a kind of labor that I'm not interested in. And for some people, I know it's super zen. Like, you can sit down, you can paint stuff, you can make grass, you can plant, happy little trees. You can do that stuff, and I will gladly do that stuff here. When it comes to doing it with my physical hands, I can't. It doesn't appeal to me. And again, if I sat down, really, I'm sure I could become interested in it. I'm sure that it has a very similar allure to what doing this has, and in a general sense, they feel the same. But the other major thing is I never had the dough to throw around to build something that effective, or to build something that big, or to build, the kind of thing that I want. And what I really want is just have a group that I can dick around with. That's why building Tollbrand as best as I can to be multiplayer compatible, and why I'm interested in multiplayer Surveyor above any other thing that might be coming in 2019. I just want to have a more social experience with my railroad, whatever it may be, because it's much cooler when there's a lot of people working together, even if they aren't real people. That's why I like automating things. Just seeing, sort of the dance. Seeing the dance of trains and figuring that out, and having lots of things going on at once. It's more intriguing, more interesting than being on your own and playing with your own layout. At least for me it is. And the other thing is the cost involved. In this I can have as many trees as I want. The trees over there. Whereas, oh, you know what? I need to turn this back down because I turned it up for screenshots. No wonder why the game is not running the best. I can have as many trees as I want. I can have as many engines as I want. I can repaint engines if I really wanted to. I haven't actually gotten into reskinning. But I can have a big boy and not pay, $500 for it. I can have, 5 T1s lined up next to one another without worrying about those boxes and those costs and a decoder burning out and, anything. You don't have to do maintenance on these things. It's so much less involved. It's the poor man's model railroad, really. Whether you're cash poor or time poor or even motivationally poor, you don't have to force yourself to go and make that layout. You can join a club and you can do this. You can do this. You can just spend your hours building a route in trains and never worry about how much it's going to cost. The only thing, you have a high startup cost, you need a decent computer, you need to buy the game. But other than that, you can live without DLC. You can live without JR content and K&L trains and all this other stuff that, you basically slowly get nickel and dimed, not by N3V, but just by everybody else, because everyone's making their own content. And, why not get all of it? So, yeah. Okay, we got another little section done. That's nice. I should probably focus on the area closest to the tracks. I think I'll do that from here. But I've sort of been doing one landmass at once, and that's been working out to an extent. Excuse me. I'm going to put this up here, and then over here. So it's 6:30 now. We are about an hour in. I think, yeah. If you guys want a visit from the Iron Horseman wagon, which I need to check if on the RYDOT website, if the vanity plate HRSEMAN is available, or HORSMAN, or HORSMN, Horseman. I don't know. There's a lot of different combinations you can do there. I'm still not sure which one looks best. It's just got to be 6 letters because Rhode Island plates are only 6 characters. And with a vanity plate, there are some other rules and regulations that go with how you can set up the letters and numbers if you have any numbers, which I don't intend to in this thing. And one of the things is I intend to get a, after the touch-up, after I know that the body's going to be okay, I want to get a decal that's the Horseman logo to put on the side of the car, on the doors, on the passenger doors. Or sorry, on the front 2 doors. Because that'd be cool. So anyway, yeah, we're about an hour in. Let me change gears here. Dean gave me the only other comment on the episode, and I can understand why, because I only had the episode up for 3 days before now. I put it up on a Tuesday, which that was late. That was wicked late. It's just because I had a hectic week and a hectic weekend. So I apologize for that. But, hopefully, if you're watching this, you didn't leave a comment on that video after I recorded this. Again, I'm recording this on Friday. Generally, if you are gonna leave a comment, which I do recommend, I like it when people leave comments, because I will read them and respond to them. The thing is, don't leave one after Thursday on a video, unless the next one is up. Like if a video came out that Thursday, yeah, that day, yeah, leave it on that one. But if a video hasn't come out and Thursday ends, which it won't, they probably, it's rare that they'll come out on Friday and then most commonly on Saturday now. If you're gonna leave a comment on whatever episode came out most recently, if it's before Thursday, and if it's after Thursday, see if an episode came out on Thursday, and if one has, leave one on that, and if not, just wait. Leave a comment on the next one that comes out. And I can see that being a reason for sort of a lack of comments, because why are you going to wait and then post a comment? But that's, if you want me to read your comment on air, that's how it's got to be, and talk about your comment on air. So, and again, you can ask me anything, and I say this normally towards the end of episodes, but you can ask me anything you want, and I will do my best to respond to it. You can tell me whatever you want, like Chris said to go and do this, and I'm doing it. This is what I'm spending the episode on. And yeah, and that's that. No. Okay, so and I will listen. I will do the things that you ask, and I will respond to the things that you say, and I will answer the questions you have, to the best of my ability, and to, obviously if you ask me something super personal, I'll probably just laugh it off and say, I'm not going to talk about that in the air, but, there is not, like, my limit for what I keep in is pretty low. I don't hide a whole lot of stuff. I don't have a whole lot of shame. But anyway, yeah, Dean says, it's Houstonic stuff. Who would you have cast for the film? Oh my god, I don't know. I don't know actors and actresses very well anyway. For Jack, I would love it if I had, like, Mark Wahlberg or something, somebody that can play the Bostonian, obviously, and also can definitely play, like, an unlikable character, or, sort of like a, because, I mean, he's not supposed to be overtly unlikable, but he's got something off about him. Oh god, I'm trying to think. Because I'm trying to think of, like, okay, who fits in these roles? Oh man. Now I'm just goofing on, what would be funny? What would be good? What fits the roles? And, like, I don't know, so for the Museum Oldtimer, now there is somebody in real life that I would cast for that. His name is Don Nevin, and he's part of the Providence Northern Model Railroad Club. But wouldn't it be great to have Bill Murray? Just wouldn't it be great? And again, these aren't realistic. I don't know, either the budget of this film, whatever it would be, most of the budget I'm sure would go towards just the stuff for the film, the engines and whatnot, and not towards the actors. I wouldn't really intend to have any big name actors in the film. Mostly because I'm not one to care really about big name actors, and I'm not designing these character roles around particular actors. Now, to have Bill Murray as the old man, or to have, like, Clint Eastwood as Thompson, this, like, grizzled older guy, yeah, that could be entertaining. Could definitely add to it, but I don't think it would add all that much. I think it would just be the star power, that would draw people to the film. But it probably wouldn't affect it very much. Now, I don't know who would play Clayton. My in the back of my mind says Will Smith because I just recently watched Wild Wild West, but I don't really think so. And he's a little bit older than what the role would intend now. And in the days of Wild Wild West, he was a little bit younger, but years have gone by since then. And I can't really, I don't necessarily pay attention to a lot of newer shows, so I don't know a lot of newer actors. I would have no reason to put Chris Pratt in the script, although it'd be nice to have him on board in some capacity. And I'm thinking of Marvel actors. I don't know who would do. Who's the? Oh, Aubrey Plaza for Abigail Mission. Maybe. She doesn't totally fit, but I could see it. I don't know. I'm thinking too hard. What about Jeff Bridges for the old timer? Again, I'm just picking out actors who I know. How about Barbara Dunkelman. Barbara Dunkelman playing Abigail Mission. There we go. We got one. I'm sure I could get her. Okay, not really, but she would definitely be entertaining in that role. She would fit the role, if not totally persona-wise, she would fit the role. Just she'd have the look that's necessary. Maybe not even Jeff Bridges for Thompson. Maybe Bo. Yeah, maybe Bo Bridges for Thompson. But he's too old for that role too. I'm thinking so hard. It doesn't. There's. I don't need a sex appeal actress, so there's not really a point of, trying to look for one of those. I need somebody more for. I need somebody for their appearance, yes, but I don't need the icon of. I don't need a Scarlett Johansson as Abigail Mission. Don't get me wrong, Barbara Dunkelman is beautiful, but I wouldn't be casting her to put her in a sex scene. And I'm thinking, half the people I know are English actors, or, British actors and actresses. And it's well, they would have no place in this hypothetical film. I wouldn't have anybody English, Although, well, wait. What about the dude? Who's the dude who plays Ford Prefect in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the movie? Because he might be, if he can, I don't know if his accent was faked or embellished or whatever for the movie. I don't know how he would sound trying to be an American, but he would fit the role of Clayton. Again, time has gone by since that movie was filmed. So him then would be great. I don't know about him now. I don't again, I don't know who he is off the top of my head. There's no way to include I said Bo Bridges because of General Landry from Stargate. There's no way that I can think of to include the other any other Stargate actors except for maybe the guy who played Nick Rush playing Thompson. I don't know. It's so much to think about. It's a lot to think about. It's entertaining. It really is. It's a total pipe dream. It's not even a pipe dream. I'm throwing out names just because I think they would be entertaining, not because I would ever really want that person in that role, maybe except for Barbara. I would be entertained. I think it would be cool to have that, but I'm not sure it would, again, I think it might even affect the movie for the worse, having the kind of budget that it might have, having to spend that much money on somebody who's seriously a star, it wouldn't work. You need that money for the set pieces. The movie is about the train more than, almost more than it's about the people. I mean, it is about the people. It's a character story. It's driven by the characters more than anything. It's not, aliens are invading and we have to repel them. It's, these three guys have their jobs, their jobs are at stake, and they're doing what they can to, not only save their jobs, but, make the world around them better in the meantime, or, as a side effect. It's a story of a woman who is trying to do the best for her community so that she has some notoriety for her future endeavors, and learns that she's heading down the wrong path in doing so. It's a story of a guy who feels like he's been wronged by his former employer and wants revenge of some kind, and is just completely nuts. And lastly, and I do mean this lastly, because it is really, the main character arc is really Abigail's, and the least important character arc is probably the love story that has to exist. Mattie's and Jake, not Jake, his name's not Jake, Mattie and Michael. And also Jake being taken away by the police. That's a character arc, not really though. These arcs are happening. It's very much a story-driven film. It's not a blockbuster. It's not you've got these people. We got Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Pratt and Scarlett Johansson and all these other people, all these huge names in film. You got Samuel L. Jackson and I can't really name any other ones off the top of my head. You've got no. I can name at least one more. And I forget her name. Amy Pond, Karen Gillan. You've got all them. You've got them packed on a one screen, and a million people are going to come and see this movie. This isn't that. This, and Benedict Cumberbatch as well. And those are all the people I can name. There are probably more. So I don't. Whatever. Spoiler alert, or not spoiler alert, but I haven't seen Infinity War. I'm not much worried about spoilers. I've been on the internet since Infinity War came out. I know about all of the Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good, and that sort of thing. I know. Don't worry, I know. I just haven't seen it, and so I can't really say very much about it. Honestly, I haven't seen a Marvel movie. Well, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And before that, I think the last one I'd seen was Guardians of the Galaxy 1 or the Avengers. I can't remember which one came out more recently. But it was one of those two. Okay, I'm going to try this milkshake again. I'm sorry if I'm going to be quiet for a minute. The milkshake is now warm, and that makes me sad. So I could really use some water, but nobody's here to get me water. I don't want to just cut and run and go grab water, but I might have to, because I'm going to run out of the ability to talk, and I need to talk more tonight. I can't just go into my room and be a recluse once this episode is over, like I do sometimes. God, you guys, okay, it's your turn now. Who do you think would fit in the Housatonic based on the character descriptions that I've told you? So, to refresh everyone's memory, I should have done this before I started talking about it. To refresh everyone's memory, Clayton James, or I'm probably going to be renaming him Clayton Perry, is a 20s, like late 20s, early 30s, black male from Adams, Massachusetts. Probably is either bald or has very, very short hair and no facial hair. At least, that's how I'm envisioning him. He's an optimistic dude. He really is the one that is making those pushes for the commuter service. He is the one where when Jack doesn't care and the other guy, Samuel, thinks all is lost. He's the guy that's like, no, we can fix this. We just need to figure out what to do to get the communities back on our side. It's his pushing that causes the Housatonic commuter service to become a reality, not anybody else's. So he's Perry because never give up the ship. And then you have Samuel. Samuel is a white male from Foccia, Georgia. F-O-C-C-I-A. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but I'm taking a guess. Or Foccia, or Foccia, or something like that, He's from Foccia, Georgia, and he is a little bit older. He's late 30s at the youngest, but probably in his 40s. He's a little bit more somber. Doesn't often say, doesn't say more than he has to a lot of the time. He can talk and he can be sarcastic, but he really doesn't do it particularly often. He's the kind to, he's the strong, silent type. Like I said, white male, and that's, late 30s is the youngest I could realistically make him, because he's got a 15-year-old son. And, honestly, you should probably be older. He's the conductor. Anyway, Jack. Jack is the head of the railroad. Jack Nessuno, which again is a rough translation of the word nothing in Italian, because that's a fake name. He is part of the mob. He doesn't really care about the railroad. He's very energetic. He can be excitable, whatever. He'd be the kind of guy that's a blast to hang around with, and when you guys get drunk and, crash into somebody's car or beat somebody up, he'd be the guy that can get you out of jail at the end of the day, no problem. He's from Cambridge, Boston. That's why I thought of Marky Mark for that. Anyway. Other people. Now there's Clayton's son, who I haven't totally nailed him down yet. He's also pretty energetic. He's a risk taker. He's a 15-year-old. What do you, how much more do I really have to say? We've all been there, and if we haven't been there, we're going to be. I'm talking for those in the audience that are that young. What more do I have to say? Then we have, he can be nervous about things. He gets anxious sometimes. But he's not super scholarly. He's just sort of, and he's not super punk either. He's pretty in the middle. He's pretty middle of the road. He's a risk taker. He's 15. I don't know. I need to nail down his character more, because it's a difficult thing to really figure out. He doesn't neatly fit into any of the real stereotypes. He's not a jock. He's not a nerd. He doesn't spend all day on the computer. He doesn't have whatever. Maybe he does tend towards more nerdy. Maybe he does play video games, which I would assume he does. Not that that'd really be relevant. Yeah, no. If I'm gonna push him in one direction, it's gonna be in that direction. He's a little bit nerdier, but he's not super nerdy. He's not totally. He's not Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing. He's the Call of Duty player, the Battlefield player. He's you know, he is, you know, that kind of kid. The PUBG, you know, Rainbow Six. You know, that's what he does in his spare time. He plays online with his friends. He's not doing things that are really nerdy. He's just sort of dicking around. You know, and he definitely goes out and he explores and he has times out with his friends. He's probably not a crazy partier, but he could definitely go in that direction without too much extra prodding. He's just not there yet. He just doesn't really have an interest in sports, so he's not a jock. But yeah, so son of Samuel, yeah, that's really it. He's the guy who, you know, he tries to act like Jack. That's the other thing. That's a takeaway. He tries to act like he's super cool with Jack, and he's, you know, he doesn't really know what's going on with him, and he gets himself in way over his head trying to emulate him. But that's the fact of the matter with him. He's trying to act cool. You know, he's trying to be like that. So he's a moderated Jack almost, or he's a wannabe Jack even. And there's an image in my head of what he looks like, but I can't describe it. I can't. And if I ever saw somebody that, you know, that matched that image, I would say something. But I can't name anybody off the top of my head that does. And, actually, you know what? Oh my god, it just popped into my head. Oh no, I just lost it again. Oh man, I'm picturing a kid from something, some movie, some TV show. I don't know. Oh, no. Oh man. Well, okay, this is gonna be really, really, okay, only Dean is gonna get this, probably. Maybe a couple other people in the audience that are Stargate fans. The kid who was General O'Neill, or Jack O'Neill, it wasn't General at that point, but Colonel O'Neill, when there was like the clone of him that was like 15 or so, that's the kid. That's who I'm thinking of. You know, may not be exactly like him, but definitely has the balls like him. So yeah. He's blinded by the balls on that kid. Okay, we're gonna leave that blank for now because that's another can of worms with the copying and pasting. We've been working in the session layer. We've been working in the session layer this whole time, and I didn't fix it. Look at all that. Look at all that that's in the session layer. God damn it. Okay, I want to try something. Save. So I'm going to save this. It's going to go into the loading screen for a bit. Hopefully we don't lose anything in terms of time because it's going to be a bastard to sync it up again. Okay, so I remember not being able to move stuff onto the other layer. Oh, but I have to grab all the signals. I can't merge them because if I merge them, I'll lose the configuration in the signals. I think. You know, let me look. Let me see if it happens. Because I've never actually really attempted it. I've just sort of believed that. Let's see. Is there a red eye in this bridge? No. Let's go to a bridge where there is one. I've been slowly going through and I've been randomizing the signals a little bit. Much to Chris's chagrin. With, you know, every once in a while there's a red eye. And as you get closer to the Gilson City, this was his idea and I think it's brilliant. As you get closer and closer to Gilson City, there are more and more red eyes. Because they're slowly changing the system over, but they're only actually replacing the bulbs when they break. So, let me do this. Let me merge into route layer. And then we are going to click on this. What do I need? I need this, I need that. So it didn't get rid of it. That's still there. And then we're going to save it as a different version. Save as 0.26. So we're going to save that, then we're going to go back out, we're going to go back in, and we're going to see if it's saved. I hope it did. Because that would move everything else over that's was being problematic. So exit surveyor. That one, if that one isn't red eye, then we know that there's a problem. And so go back. 0.26. This, that. Edit session. Now we're going to load in. It might take a minute because it's Tolbrand and it's gigantic. But yeah. While it loads in, I'm going to get some water. So you guys don't have anything to look at or listen to. That took less time than I was expecting. Yeah, well, it's still a red eye. Let's see, did the config save completely? That's not the right thing. Okay, good. Let's go look at one of the other ones to make sure that that isn't an isolated incident. And by one of the other ones, I mean one of the real important ones, so these guys. These guys, and I'm not even done with them yet, but these guys are going to be a pain in the butt. Ouch. So these kind of things. Okay, good, it's saved. Okay, awesome. Now let's go and make sure that all of the things are in the route layer. So let's go into the swamp. Let's go into the session layer here. Let's switch off of the session layer, for God's sake, before I do it again. Let's see. We were working over here. Turn off the session layer. Magic. Excellent. Okay, so I'm glad that worked. We can do that in the future. And it looks like everything's still more or less synchronized, so happy day, happy, happy day. I'm just thinking of who would make the crazy old man. And to be fair, crazy old man in the movie, not all that crazy. He's just an agent of chaos, as I've explained before. Oh, I was explaining all the characters, and so that you guys can think about who you could picture in that role. And I got off on the kid. Phrasing. Okay. Then there's Abigail. Abigail is, probably mid to late 20s or early 30s at the oldest. She is really just, she's beautiful, but not like, boom, beautiful. She's just, she's a normal beautiful. She's good looking, I guess is the right word. And, blonde woman, tall, skinny, like, all that jazz. Maybe it doesn't have to be that tall anyway, but she has to have a presence. And, very strong-willed, and, very, very sort of, trying to be a moral character very strong sense of right and wrong, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And, able, very, very competent. She's a very, very competent woman. She's able to, see a situation developing and immediately take hold of it, figure out what to do with it to get the best out of it and do that. And that's really how the rail trail came about in the first place. Where she saw people who were discontented about the railroad, saw people that, sort of wanted a bike path and thought, I can take this into my own hands. And then she did, and she very nearly succeeded, as the story goes. And yeah. So there's that. And again, she has the change of heart later in the movie, so it can't be somebody who comes off as unsympathetic, like an unsympathetic character. It has to be somebody who, the audience can jive with. I want the audience to be able to see both points of view. This is the kind of thing where I'm trying to stress that there really isn't a bad guy here except for Thompson because he's trying to kill people. Other than that, for the most part, there's no overt bad character. Because I don't want to antagonize anyone. I don't want anyone to start walking out of the theater demonizing other people. It's not supposed to be a movie that leaves you with a charge. It's supposed to be a movie that leaves you with a, they did it, wow, oh my god, they did it. Everybody, happy ending, happily ever after, that sort of thing. That's what I want out of this film. Not, oh, so it's all their fault, or, oh, these guys are trying to do this, or, whatever. It's going to be very clear that the real enemy is unhinged. It's going to be very clear that it's not, the message of the movie. The other characters are going to reject that, and in the end, he's going to get in trouble with the law. And, that's that. We could have as an interesting, not really a cameo, because the person would have a decently sized part, but the inspector, and I don't know what the inspector would be like. The inspector could be somebody from Boston, or it could be somebody from, somebody from somewhere in Connecticut, or, somebody just from Washington, D.C. even, so they could be from anywhere. Could even have Wimbledon as the inspector, because he wants to, or not he wants to necessarily, well maybe he does, I don't know, I'm not going to out his plans, but, he could, after being a mechie, and working with the railroad the way he has, go on to become an FRA inspector, which I think would be a great position for him. Mostly because then you absolutely know there's at least one FRA inspector that knows what they're doing. Badumts. Anyway. So there's that. There's the inspector. And I don't know about Matty. I don't know really about anybody else. I haven't thought too hard about that. It's just the kind of thing where it's like, okay, there are quite a few characters in this movie. This isn't a one or two man affair. There are at least 5 main characters, and that would be at least 6, I guess. It would be Jack, Samuel, Clayton, Michael, Matty, and Abigail. So 6 mains, which is a lot of people to develop, but I don't know how you would necessarily do it with fewer people. You could cut out Matty if you really wanted to, but I'm including that for the sake of I'm including her for the sake of including her, and I mean she's really more of a side character. She probably won't have that much development. Certainly she'll have less than any of the other ones. Although I'm not sure too many of the characters, I'm not sure Clayton and I'm not sure Samuel will really change all that much, and Jack won't really have time to. Thompson probably won't either, although I'm not sure if he would be considered a main character. So if we're really getting down to it, there's 4 mains: Abigail, Michael, Clayton, Samuel. That's about it. You know, you don't necessarily have to have the other people as main characters, or have them be main characters, or call them main characters, I guess. I don't know exactly what determines that. I'm not sure there is a definite criteria. It's just, who does the story revolve around? And that's going to be it. You're never going to see Jack in a scene without at least one of the other characters. You're not going to see Matty in a scene without Michael, probably, or at least one of the other, main characters. You're not going to see Thompson in a scene without somebody else, more than likely. But although he probably would have some scenes where he's setting stuff up, setting up traps or doing whatever. So I don't think he's a main character, but he might have some scenes where he is the star of the scene and not something that's, just something that's influencing whoever the main characters are in that scene. So, I'm not sure if you could call him a main character, but he definitely will have a pretty, he definitely will probably have time to himself on the screen. So, yeah. Anyways, I didn't describe Thompson. Thompson is, again, a grizzled older guy who just really has a beef with the railroad and is just an unscrupulous dude. He's probably in his 50s at least. And then the old-timer is probably way up there, like at least in his 80s. He probably has, at least experienced steam engines. Probably didn't drive one because we're running out of people in this day and age that really did drive steam locomotives. But crank the clock back a few years and maybe you would have had the opportunity to. It depends how old they were and where they were. And, the Boston and Maine did run steam-powered commuter service until 1956, I think. So, maybe if he was born in 1930, he would have had the opportunity, but that would make him, drawing a blank. I should be able to do this math. Then put him in his 80s. He'd be 88. So yeah, he'd be old. He probably wouldn't be, maybe he saw steam engines as a boy and then, didn't have the chance to get his hands on one as much as he would have liked to, and that's why he's so, yes, let this happen. Why he's so happy to throw a wrench in the workings of the Danbury Railway Museum and have these guys make off with this engine, which I think is a more feasible, more plausible story, where he didn't have the opportunity to drive a steam engine, but he may have had many opportunities to ride behind them when he was in his youth, when he was much younger. Not that that really matters. He's just an old guy. He's a happy old guy. So, yeah, you know what? I don't think Bill Murray would fit, because Bill Murray fits the grumpy old guy more than the happy old guy. It's just nice to get Bill Murray in the script, He did a great Garfield. Anyway. I'm just gonna continue putting this grass down. Yeah, you guys give me your thoughts. Who would you want to see in this movie? Who do you want to see as these characters? Who do you think could fit in the movie even without fitting one of these characters? Who do you think would be that important to have? Are there any? What are the actors out there? Because I'm sure there are some. There must be some. Who are the actors that are also train buffs out there? Because I want to know. Oh, it would be hilarious? Getting Doyle McCormick to play the old timer. Just because. Like, no really good reason. Just because. Not playing himself, playing this other person. I don't know, that'd be kind of funny. As long as he calls someone chum somewhere. Somewhere in the episode, somewhere in the script. Or not episode, in the movie. Has to happen. If we're going to get him on board. We're not. But, you know, has to happen. Okay. Yeah. All this is grass. It really, there's not much to think about here. All this is grass. Let me recheck the wording of this. Spend the next episode in the swamp. Yep. That's what I'm doing, Chris. So, yeah. Where do you think you would fit in the script? people in the comments, who could you play? Or what would you know, maybe if you aren't even a main character, how would you fit in the script? Where do you think you would be? Would you want to be an extra with the protesters? Would you want to be, you know, an extra among the passengers? Maybe both. Would you want to, you know, be somebody? I mean, that's the only thing would be extras and whatnot, or, you know, just somebody that factors in somehow. You guys have heard most of the plot to this point that I've thought of anyway. If you guys think of something, say something. Alright, there we go. So, yeah. If you think of something, say something. Say some words. Write some words. Let me know what your brain is saying to you. And, you know, I mean, honestly, pretty much all of the ideas that I've gotten so far have ended up being incorporated into the script in one way or another. So, you know, whatever you come up with, you guys in the audience, pretty good chance of making it into a movie script. A movie script that probably will go nowhere, but a movie script nonetheless. Admittedly, probably more likely than making it into an Iron Horseman episode at this point, because you can do a lot with the thoughts you can have about the Iron Horseman, and a lot of them we won't like. A lot of them we, oh, you know what? I need some culvert pipes here. Let me just delete this. We'll work on that later. When we come through to do the actual scenery around there, I'll go and I'll put those culvert pipes in. It's got to be something where I've got to be sort of ready to do almost a culvert pipe assembly line, where I do one and then I do the next and then I do the next and then I do the next. If I stop to make culvert pipes, if I keep stopping to make culvert pipes, I'm going to spend like my whole day on them, and that's not something I want to do. So anyway, let's do this. We will at some point need to do the edge of these, but I'm really just working on the swamp itself and not the causeways. Although I have about 20 minutes left in the episode, maybe I can go through and I can do that one causeway that's right here. This is a very short section of causeway, and then once we get this, it'll basically have this whole area boxed in. We can fill that in with stuff. Yeah. It's very hit or miss with this right now. I'm just going to do the whole thing, and it's the same texture as that, right? It's not a different texture? I don't think it is. Let me see. Oh, it is. It's slightly different. Okay, I didn't actually realize it was a different texture. So let me do this all along the edges of the thing here. Oh, we're missing 2 brick abutments. That's interesting. I don't know how I missed that the first time around. I need to put those in. And here's another one of the things where I should have, I shouldn't do this now, but I'm going to be quote-unquote done with this area. This is going to be the kind of thing where I know if I don't do this now, I don't think I'm going to come back to it. And I know that it needs to be done. So I'll just do this. I'll get it out of the way. Let's see. That one's facing the right way. This one is not. There we go. We've got some small brick abutments. Back to what we were doing. But here's what I'll do. I'll make the radius a little bit bigger, and we can overlap onto the track some. And we'll cover over the area that was done in excess with the track gravel when we come through with that in just a minute. Yeah, I'm glad I went and checked, because this is a different texture. It is, in fact, a different texture. So, I don't know. I don't know what's next. We talked about transit. We talked about my car. We talked about the Housatonic. I want to hear some stuff from you guys. I want to hear about your local transit systems too. What do you think? What do they do? How do they do? What could they do? Something I always wanted to do was set aside some time to go through and talk with people about what they think Amtrak should add. Not like, oh, dining car back on the Lakeshore Limited. Trust me, everyone agrees with you except for one guy. It just happens to be that guy's in charge. Yeah, they should do that. But also, the thing is, Amtrak, when it inherited all of the services from all of the companies that it got stuff from, which was most companies in the U.S., most major railroad companies in the U.S., right off the bat, they immediately curtailed countless services. And I'm not saying that as, oh, God forbid, or, oh, no, they've done this horrible thing. They had a lot of services that all went to the same place, or, that were effectively redundant or were in really bad shape in terms of ridership. And so they couldn't keep them all. So they curtailed a whole lot of services on, what was that? May 1st, 1977, or 1971, I think it must have been. Was it 1971? Or was it 1977? One of those two. I think it's 70. And, so let me ask you guys, what service, barring anything where it's like, oh, the infrastructure isn't there, this bridge is out, nothing runs through anymore, the station's torn down, whatever. If you could, wave a magic wand and have an Amtrak service back, what would you want to have back? And that can be an established train, or the other thing is, what Amtrak service do you think they should add? Speaking from the current era, what do you think that they should add? And there's an and why there. I'm sorry. This is your English class. It's please, say this and explain why. But I do want to hear it, and I want to hear the rationale for it. My wave a magic wand would be the Minuteman, because a service running from North Station that goes across the north end of Massachusetts would be really cool. It would hit up a lot of these communities that are really far out of the way, and places like North Adams as well. Through the Hoosick Tunnel into Troy, which, as many of you know, I've stated before, no longer has a railroad station, hasn't for many years. But if it were still in place, that would be, I would love to have that, because it would now be serving this two-college town, plus the other college towns that are along the way, like Fitchburg, and, you'd have and North Adams, I believe, is a college town. It's really an artist's town more than anything, but you would have this other route that's otherwise fairly heavily traveled by freight traffic and is still out of the way for the I-90 corridor that exists in Massachusetts. So that would be the thing that I would want. And I'm only speaking from stuff that's near me. If I was going to go nationwide, there are other services that I think warrant the magic wand a little bit more. But, yeah, that is something that I think would be really great. And then you could have it extend down on the Troy running track into Albany Rensselaer Station so that it could connect with the Lakeshore Limited and stuff like that. So that's my magic wand. As for a realistic proposition, the thing that I would like to see would be a service that runs either up into Manchester, New Hampshire, and beyond to what's the town up there? The town beyond Manchester, New Hampshire, Concord. And the reason for that would be it's a area that has very little public transportation at all, and it's a fairly major area. It's got a lot of people, and it's in this valley, and the only way in and out is I-93, which is honestly kind of woeful in some places. And I think that could use that kind of corridor, and it would bring more Amtrak into North Station as well. I feel like North Station is underserved in terms of Amtrak. They definitely do have a good commuter service up there, though. That's just the north half of the MBTA. Yeah, so that'd be that, and I feel like I've kind of wasted that a little bit. What I would really like is a more frequent, this pertains to me more, but what I would really like to see is a more frequent Boston to Albany service. Anything that gets more people traveling in that direction, I think, would be, beneficial. If you were to run it as the Minuteman, where you're running it the northerly route, obviously it would take longer. The tracks there are not suited for speed. The B&M designed them to avoid grades and didn't much care about the curvature, whereas the B&A kind of did the opposite. They didn't really care about the grades, or they over-engineered it as best as possible. But the B&A did their best to ensure that there were some wide curve radii. It's not the quickest thing in the world, but they could have built a straighter line, or they could have built, a line with, more moderate grades and more severe curves. Usually that's your trade-off. So, yeah. I mean, it's not so cut and dry either way. But something I would love to see, and this is totally on a different note, that we did a Steamtown top 3 in the group the other day. Just like, what would you love to see out of Steamtown? This is another Wave the Magic Wand one where the forces of reality don't necessarily apply. And my top 3 was, I want to see Blount Run, which is pretty realistic. I want to see, what was the second one? I can't remember. I think it was just, I want to see 3713 run, I want to see Blount run, and I want, 3713, obviously, it's underway. And I want to see, the Shea run. And that's my, it was Blount 47, which is the 464 tank engine that's in the, that's just sitting out there. So cool. Such a cool little thing. And the third thing was Ellie the Shea. Well, we named him Ellie. And that's the one that's sinking into the ground. So, to get a perspective on how feasible or realistic that actually would be, quick answer, wouldn't be. But I'd love to see it. Nothing is too far gone. The New Zealanders have taught us that. They literally took an engine that was buried in an embankment, and it's just absolutely beautiful today. You can look that up if you want to. I recommend it. The engine is gorgeous. But they took that, the Shay is not too far gone. It's not totally submerged in the mud yet. So, and again, I think it got better since we were last there. I am fairly certain that in the meantime, because I remember there being like a cordon around it last time we were there for the Pennsylvania special. I remember there being a cordon around it, so I think they jacked it up a little bit in the meantime. They might have prevented it from sinking just a little bit, which just makes my heart flutter knowing that they care even just a little bit. And also I saw, wow, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Never mind. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. So, no, you can do that too if you want to. I would love to see everyone's top 3 at Steamtown wave the magic wand. But I'm interested in the Amtrak ones a little more. Because, so there are other ones that we can talk about. There are other areas that I think are deprived of commuter service. One of them being, or train service in general, one of them being Phoenix. Phoenix, you have to drive south to Maricopa, which is like 40 miles, before you can catch a train anywhere, and that train is the Sunset. So, yeah, good luck with that. Amtrak does provide a shuttle bus service, but honestly, Phoenix deserves something. There should be a train, at least I think, in my opinion. First of all, there should be a stop at Williams. But, second of all, I feel like there definitely should be a, something that runs, whether this be Amtrak or not, something that runs from Tucson, or even as far as El Paso, but probably not, because El Paso's far away, but from Tucson, as a connecting service to the Sunset Limited, to, north to Phoenix, and then on to Flagstaff. And I think, maybe you could stop it there, or maybe you could continue it, if you really wanted to. But, you have those 3 stops and maybe some intermediate, small town stops. And not only do you alleviate congestion on the highways on the highway, which is I-10, between Phoenix and Tucson, but you have, another connection, which Tucson, I was researching Tucson, and I was blown away by the, for a community where it is, in an area of the country that doesn't really do public transit that much, how much they've put into their public transit system, how much they've put into their bus system. They run over 200 buses, which is one for about every 3,000 people, which is an incredibly low number. Normally it's like one for every 5,000 people at least, in their sort of catchment area. And that is, thinking. I don't remember. They run a ton of buses, and they have a very good sort of utility of the buses. A lot of people use them, which is the other part that's impressive to me, because we started with this talking about the bus stigma, and I think I've totally come full circle in this episode, because it's what I was thinking about at the beginning of the episode, the research that I just did for Tucson, where I was like, oh my god, these people really use their transit system. The other thing, I've talked to Weibold at length about this, is Colorrail, like a front range line that runs between Denver and Pueblo, or even farther, Denver and Trinidad, and then you have it interfacing with the Southwest Chief. Or you bring the Southwest Chief to Pueblo, and just have it, out of the way a little bit. But I think the last thing the Southwest Chief needs is more stops, and more mileage to cover. I think that they could just, have a Colorrail thing where it runs to Pueblo and then it runs to, whatever the other town is out there. I forget what it's called. In Trinidad. La Junta. Thank you, brain. La Junta, and and that's and Trinidad, and it meets with the Southwest Chief in both of those locations. I think that would be good enough. I don't think you need to reroute the Southwest Chief, and I think providing, La Junta and Trinidad are not very large communities, and I think, coming back to the bus stigma and the reason why it exists, I think providing them some sort of public transit, and I think Pueblo needs it too, and Colorado Springs to a lesser extent, Denver to a lesser extent. I mean, Denver has pretty good public transit as it is, but giving them something, giving anyone mobility is important, but giving people that don't otherwise have mobility is very important. So, being able to access those communities, being able to bring people on the edges of the state in towards the middle, I think that's going to be a big deal. And I think that also, might help the larger towns that it's attached to. Say Pueblo. Pueblo would now have a larger, sort of a larger catchment area of people that it can get for a workforce. Whatever that workforce may be. But, that's not insignificant. That's not a small deal. You want to be able to, if you can get as many people as you can, it means that you have better chances of getting people that can be useful in whatever economy you're trying to grow. New York City would not be nearly as big if it couldn't reach its suburbs, and it couldn't bring people in as easily as it does. So, it's a really, really big deal to be able to bring people in like that. I think the primary benefit of commuter rail is connecting urban areas, but the secondary benefit is connecting those urban areas to outlying areas. Connecting urban areas to one another is the first thing, and them to suburban areas or even rural areas is the second thing, because if there's anything you want to give people, it's a chance to move around. Whether or not that be move up, but this is America. We're all about being able to do whatever you want. And if you're stuck out somewhere and you can't earn a wage that lets you get out of the place, and you don't feel like there's opportunities to get out of the place, then you just might never leave. And you might be robbing yourself of opportunities, or you might be robbed of opportunities just because of where you grew up. And that's not fair. That's not what we want, I would say. That's not what America is about. America is about being able to go out in the world and to conquer the world, to have that American dream. However hokey the American dream may be, I think giving everyone the access to the opportunity to make a life that they enjoy is a really, really big deal. And transit is a huge part of that, because finding the right life is, so much about finding the right place. So that ends my speech for today. I would like you all to, come up afterwards and sign this that says that we will be supporting advances in transit in the future. Now, anyway, what was the other thing? Another train that runs between like Denver and Salt Lake in the off half of the day, a daytime one, because currently the Zephyr gets into Salt Lake at like 3 a.m. So that's not great. But yeah. Sorry for blowing into the mic. I just blew into the mic, didn't I? Gosh, okay, so this is all we've got done so far. We were up to like here, I think. You can compare like a before and after in the, we're slowly looking at what we've done. And I've been working the route layer, right? Okay, yeah, working the route layer. And, yeah, so we got a lot more done than we had done before. It's a big deal. We've got more of the swamp. We've got a lot more swamp to go. But I would say we went from like a third done to edging on a half done, maybe like 2/5 done. So we've got a long, long way to go. But I think in the grand scheme, it's not going to take forever. It's probably not going to take nearly as long as Olive did. You know, we did get a whole lot done. So anyway, well, let's see. Oh yeah, no, I'm on my last few seconds here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Trainman out.